Hi, Mr. Young. Thank you for meeting with me today. So I just wanted to interview you and get your kind of view and perspective on a certain social issue. I'm taking a class this semester and it's called Social Problems and it's with Dr. Solomon. It's one of my favorite classes, and we've been covering different topics and different issues with social problems. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to see what you think and what your experience is about a specific social problem. And I want to talk about the social problem of drug addiction. So, to begin, can you please introduce yourself and kind of your connection to drug addiction?
Yes, my name is Anthony Young. I'm the program director for Warren County Day Treatment. I've been a part of Warren County Day Treatment, which is a contracted Department of Juvenile Justice program in the state of Kentucky for the past 25 years. And prior to that, I spent 5 years in Rivendell Psychiatric Hospital that has multiple units for children and adolescents, which includes trust unit, which is substance abuse, as well as a juvenile sexual offender unit.
Okay. So can you kind of like explain where you got your information about the social problem? I know that working at Rivendell was a part of your kind of pathway into being a principal or a program director. Can you kind of explain that?
Yes. So I originally started my college journey working for a law firm. Um, and then I also did hours of community service at the Boys and Girls Club. And at that point in time, I fell in love with not only the court system, but also um, youth who were having some issues, youth who had a lot of more life challenges than a typical teenager or young adult would have. When I started at Rivendell, I was very interested in understanding treatment modalities. So within that, Rivendell did several trainings and sent me to different places to gain more knowledge. And one of those places was to look at the Seven Challenges program, which is an adolescent substance abuse program. So I was flown out to Arizona to meet with the creator of the program, Dr. Sweeble, to gain more knowledge and more understanding about adolescent substance abuse issues that are going on. Um, Through that, I then moved into the mental health counseling position at Warren County Day Treatment, and I used some of those tools to run groups with substance abuse groups and groups with anger management and things with adolescents. And I really got very interested in understanding more about their mindset of using and getting addicted to substance abuse. And throughout the years, we've seen several students who've had several different types of addictions and understanding why those addictions and how those addictions was evolved in that student's life.
Okay. So, based off of your experience and what you have seen over the years, do you believe that drug abuse and things like the opioid crisis and everything are public health concerns?
I would say in the state of Kentucky, there are very serious health concerns with opioids, as well as fentanyl use. Cannabis use has continued to be a polarizing subject when it comes to addiction versus use. Um, so, being a part of the Juvenile Justice Center, we have created a uh, group called the Juvenile Detention Alternative to Detention interagency group where we look at the trends of why students are being detained, what drug uses are drugs of choice for different towns and places in Kentucky, as well as looking in depth at Bowling Green. Within Bowling Green, Kentucky, we have a coalition called Save Our Kids Coalition, and their primary purpose is to find out more about what the trends of drugs are for our high schoolers and our middle schoolers. So they send out thousands of surveys each year to collect that data and then bring that data to the current providers in our town. So one of the big providers is our mental health hospital, Rivendell, and then we have several outpatient providers as well. So through 7 challenges, I wanted our day treatment program to be a outpatient step down source for Rivendell's substance abuse and dual diagnosis, their unit. So with that, I wanted my staff to be able to have the same base knowledge for the 7 challenges program, which is different than the traditional adult 12-step program. One of the big differences is a lot of the juveniles haven't gotten to the point where they have hit a rock bottom where they feel like that their drug of choice is causing an issue in their life. So with the 7 challenges programs, we have to meet them where they're at and give them the knowledge so they can make the choices based off of their inferences of their knowledge of what we're giving them. And the first step in that program is just getting them to be open and honest without fear of consequences. So we want them to be open and honest about the drugs that they've tried, what they're using, what they've used, and then looking at a deeper sense of why are you using that?
Mhm.
Because the why is different for all of our youth. It could be the same drug, but could be based off of a different why. So getting to that why is the important next step.
So, based off of your kind of, I guess, inference over the whys for juveniles, do you think that or can you explain the difference between drug abuse for juveniles versus drug abuse for adults, even in early adulthood or emerging adulthood?
Yes, I do believe the difference is the difference in the consequences and the life realities of the addiction. When you're a young adult and you're an aging adult, you have significant consequences. You have the financial consequences of how much it costs for DUI court and classes and uh, having to go to so many classes, and it's $75 a class that you have to pay, or the court is not going to release you from things. Losing jobs, which in turn can also create losing homes and losing places to stay, broken relationships. So those are more significant jail time. Those are more significant uh, things that can happen in adult life.
Right.
Juvenile's life is more uh, sheltered as far as their consequences and their understanding of their drug choice. So within juveniles, it's more about what could happen. So in challenge 3, we look at the use of alcohol and other drugs to see if it had caused harm or could cause harm. So we want to reflect on what could happen if we continue down this road. And then also look at what are some of the things that you've lost. Some of them were great athletes and they've lost being on the school team. Some of them have lost football scholarships, basketball scholarships. Some of them have lost friend groups. So we have to get them to really start digging deep into what are the losses and what could be losses. And do you have people around you that you have witnessed losses? Have you have loss of loved ones for suicidal um harm? self-harm, things of that nature. Because when we look at the statistics, there's usually either dual diagnoses of mental health issues or substance abuse issues when it comes to someone taking their life.
Yeah.
And we have to get them to understand that one of the key components with younger adults from 16 to 25, there's a substance abuse component that is usually in there.
Okay, so you mentioned that one of the losses of drug addiction can definitely be social groups. So, based off of your observation, how do social groups kind of influence the actions of others? Because I know that for your students, they're transitioning from a typical public school into a program like yours. So when they get there, they're surrounded by peers that can also be considered as delinquent peers. So do you think that that's helpful or do you think that's harmful in terms of being social and also in terms of kind of controlling drug addiction?
One of the things that's always a concern of our program, and many of our programs are on ankle monitors where they can't go, or certain court ordered curfews, things like that, is that we discourage any outside engagements with your peers at school because everyone has issues when they're coming to the program. And typically, when you put two negative influences together, then you get a negative outcome. So we encourage parents not to allow it, as well as most of their court orders, their alternatives to detention plans involves not being around other juveniles who have criminal charges. That is something that is very important, but oftentimes parents don't see that as a major issue, or they allow things not knowing that other things are happening in the background. And within the social structure, we encourage jobs as a avenue of being around other peers similar to their age under supervision, and they're making money and they're learning soft skills, they're learning employability skills, and it's occupying their time because free time is the devil's playground, especially when it comes to juveniles who are involved in criminal activity or substance abuse issues. So it's important that we give them an alternative to the social norms that they've created, because a lot of times they have pushed other positive peers away because of their continued drug use and the positive peer parents not wanting them to be involved, or losing the social structures of things such as athletics or after school activities, sports, band, wrestling team, those type of things. So then they're going to gravitate more to the negative peer group. So we have to really push that. But within the Warren County Day Treatment um, parameters, we feel that that makes it difficult in our program because we don't have them 24/7.
Mhm.
So what we're teaching them often gets reversed or um, not highlighted at home or in their community. So we're always fighting that battle
Right.
within the community and within their home situation.
Right. Um, and then so you kind of mentioned what's permissible and what's not permissible for your students, how they're not supposed to kind of socialize with each other outside of school. So I wanted to ask about what happens inside of the program. So socialization can be something that's very important to kids in school. It's what kind of pushes them to go to school oftentimes because they don't enjoy the curriculum, but they do enjoy being around their friends or around their peers. So how do you guys navigate that like allowance of socialization within the school, even though it's not allowed outside of school?
We're very strict when it comes to conversations and what we're doing within the program. We do allow talking and socialization when we're doing hands-on activities, and then we have a group every day that gives them opportunity to express themselves. But we're big on what we call war stories, which are when they're telling, they're glorifying things like criminal excitement, sex, drugs, parties. So we're very in tune to make sure that we stop that immediately and get them to refocus on whatever topic that we're going on. Uh, it's important that we minimize their conversations until they're responsible enough to have appropriate conversations.
Right.
So we teach it as public conversations and private conversations. It's important that we learn how to socialize publicly when we're at school, when we're at jobs, and what's allowable and what's not allowable in those settings. And then we teach them that you can code switch when you're at home. And if you're with your boys, you can talk about this or that.
Mhm.
But in public settings, it's not appropriate. But that's something that we have to practice and model on a daily basis because it takes time to change that habit of wanting
Right.
to talk slang, wanting to talk negatively, wanting to talk about sex, drugs, parties, criminal excitement, guns, all those things, because we're fighting the societal standards of that being a norm of that's okay.
Mhm.
So we don't allow that in our program.
Okay, and then you briefly discussed earlier, we kind of glossed over it. You discussed kind of the polarization of marijuana in different states and everything. So, in your opinion, and based off of the social justice program and everything, do you think that marijuana should be reclassified? And if it was, then how do you think that that would impact your students? Because I know that with your program, a lot of them are on probation and things like that, and some of them do go away for drug charges.
Yes, and we drug test randomly about every 30 days or so, could be, but it's very random. They are court ordered not to consume, possess, or use alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs. And our biggest thing about legalization of marijuana is that it still would not be legal for students that of our age
Right.
group that we interact with. And one of the biggest reasons why we don't want to legalize that is because the adolescent brain is still growing tremendously during that time frame, and we've known of studies that um, that marijuana can hinder the brain's development during those stages. And especially for young adolescent boys, their development is even slower than the young ladies.
Hmm.
So their maturity and their age of understanding and growth is way past our teenage years of the teenagers that we work with. But with it being sold and with it being more socially acceptable, they're not understanding the effects of those alcohol and drugs on their bodies and their development. But we can see that when students are heavily on substance abuses, we can see the decline in their academics, the decline in their behavior, and the decline in their attendance.
Hmm.
So that's important that we continue to fight that battle because of those things. And another thing with marijuana is that marijuana is not the same as it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s. The THC volume during those marijuana joints or whatever they would call them is very minor. And then as marijuana has evolved, it has been more potent. And then a few years ago when we were looking at marijuana blunts for things, those are about 40% THC levels. The joints that the grandmothers and grandparents use were about 15 to 20% THC.
Hmm.
And then we moved up to 40%. But now with the widespread use of vapes, they are consuming about 95% pure THC, and they're doing it at an all day level. So
Right.
that is the biggest concern, is that I've seen THC levels go through the roof when we're looking at lab results, because these students are using them all day long. They're puffing, 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 puffing all day long, and not understanding that they're putting 95% pure THC in their system,
Right.
and they're not understanding how much more of an effect that is now compared to the past, when people would smoke and then once it goes out, you're done with it and you move on. They're using the vape carts all day long, and it's taking a lot longer to get it out of their system.
Hmm.
Instead of 30 days, it's taking up to 8 weeks, 2 months to pass a drug test, because of how much THC is in their body.
Right. And then, kind of for our last question, I think we have about 8 minutes left. Where do you see your examples or just drug addiction in general in society?
Um, I see it every day in our young adults who have left the program and who have been unsuccessful, how much trouble they have, how much more difficult their life has been as a young adult, compared to the students who are leaving successfully. Uh, the ones who are unsuccessful usually have continued with drug abuse. They've usually continued with things related to the drug abuse, which we didn't get to talk about, which is the fact that they're doing crimes to support their drug habit,
Hmm.
and they're doing robbing people and setting up hits and licks for to get the money to continue the drug use, or they're selling other items and continue. And then I've had students who are also shown addictive qualities, where they've moved from marijuana to cocaine, or marijuana to fentanyl, or had things that were laced with their marijuana that have caused strong addictions. And typically that leads to a lot of homelessness in young people. A lot of people who have had mental health crises continued as adults. Uh, Young people who have continued to not can keep jobs. They're bouncing from job to job because of um, their inability to uh, work consistently, because they will get a paycheck and they will blow it on alcohol and other drugs.
Right.
Uh, and uh, I've seen an increase of incarceration. You typically, a lot of my youth that I've been encountered with, who turn to be young adults, often end up in and out of jail and prison, and there's typically some substance abuse use connected to whatever crimes or whatever things that they were doing.
Right. Do you think that there are any environmental factors that influence an increase of recidivism?
I would say yes. When we're looking at their environment, as far as their parents, and you look at, I had a intern who did a study looking at the parents' history
Hmm.
in the court system, and looking at how that followed with their juvenile child, and it was a high correlation of the judges know many of the parents
Yeah.
and many of the grandparents of those students, and they've had long-term relationships of, and often my parents are trying to turn it around,
Hmm.
but they've waited till the youth is 12 and 13, 15, and they're just now getting their lives together, and
Hmm.
they're wanting better for the youth. But there was a big gap of learning between the ages of 5 and 10 and 5 and 12
Right.
in the home. So that does definitely play an effect in their lives when you look at the environment, and their uh, living communities.
Hmm.
Lower in communities typically have more drug use and more crime in those communities.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions that I had for you today. Do you have anything else that you would like to share?
I think that is that is all. It's
Okay.
substance abuse and the socialization of those things continue to be a concern. It is not in Kentucky. The drug use and fentanyl use and opioid use is not decreasing; it is increasing.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely concerned about how that affects the home, how that affects the family, how that affects the community
Right.
at large.
All right. Thank you so much again for meeting with me today. It was very insightful to hear your perspective on these issues and the social changes that you've seen over time. And yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I've enjoyed it.
All right. You have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.